Welcome to the calm cosmos. Sound is everywhere. It is the first thing we hear before we even open our eyes to the world, the rhythm of a heartbeat, the rush of breath, and it is often the last thing we leave behind. Between those two moments, sound shapes our lives. It carries our voices, our stories, our songs, our fears, and our dreams. It heals and it destroys, it connects and it isolates, it defines identity, and it stretches into the vastness of the cosmos. This documentary is a journey into the science, the culture, the mystery, and the future of sound. From the vibrations of atoms to the roar of oceans, from ancient chants to AI-generated music, from the silence of space to the thunder of creation itself, together we will explore how sound is more than what we hear. It is the pulse of existence, the eternal symphony that binds us to each other and to the universe. Sound is one of those strange forces that defines our world yet forever hides from our senses. We cannot see it, we cannot hold it, and yet it surrounds us so completely that life without it would be unrecognizable. Imagine walking along a beach at sunrise. The waves rise and fall, crashing against the sand with a rhythm that has pulsed for millions of years. Each crash is a vibration of molecules pushing against each other, carrying energy from the depths of the ocean to your ears. Imagine a child laughing in the distance. The small vibrations of her vocal cords ripple outward, striking walls, bending around corners until they touch you and fill you with warmth. Or picture a storm unfolding on the horizon. Lightning splits the sky, silent at first, then seconds later the deep rumble of thunder rolls in, shaking the ground. In every case, it is vibration turned into sensation, invisible motion transformed into meaning. At its core, sound is simply the movement of particles. Pluck a guitar string and it trembles back and forth. That trembling pushes against the air surrounding it. The air compresses, then expands, over and over, sending out ripples in every direction. Those ripples travel through the atmosphere until they find your ear. A thin membrane inside, the eardrum shivers in sympathy. 3 tiny bones, the smallest in the human body, magnify the motion and pass it to the cochlea, where thousands of microscopic hairs sway in fluid. Each hair responds to a different frequency, turning the invisible wave into a precise pattern of electrical signals. Your brain reads those signals, and in an instant the vibration becomes sound. This process is so natural, so constant, that we rarely think about it. When friends speak, their voices are nothing more than moving air, yet we hear not only the vibration but the meaning behind it. When music plays, instruments shape air into patterns that move us to joy or tears. When a door creaks in the dark, our hearts race not at the wood itself, but at what the sound implies. Sound is never just physics. It is interpretation, context, and emotion layered onto invisible waves. Frequency gives sound its character. A slow vibration of 20 cycles per second is a deep rumble, a voice so low that it feels more like pressure than tone. A fast vibration of 20,000 cycles per second is a piercing whistle, almost painful in its sharpness. Humans live within this narrow window, yet the world extends far beyond. Dogs perk up at whistles too high for us. Elephants call to each other across miles with vibrations too low to hear. Bats map the night with ultrasonic cries, each echo painting an image sharper than sight. Whales sing in voices so deep that they can travel across entire oceans, weaving communication into the very fabric of the sea. We imagine silence outside our range, but in truth the air, the water, and even the ground are alive with conversations that slip past unnoticed. Loudness carries its own lessons. It is not a matter of frequency, but of amplitude, the size of the vibration, the height of the wave. A whisper is a ripple, a shout is a crest. We measure this intensity in decibels. At 30, a quiet forest hums with leaves and insects. At 60, 2 friends speak comfortably across a table. At 100, the roar of a motorcycle drowns out thought. At 120, a rock concert pounds the chest, shaking the body as much as the ears. At 150, sound turns dangerous. Pressure waves rupture eardrums, damage tissue, and leave lasting scars. Explosions produce waves so powerful that sound alone can wound or kill. And yet all of this, lullabies and screams, music and blasts, comes from the same principle. Particles pushing against particles, energy riding the rhythm of air. but sound is fragile. Without a medium, without air, water, or steel, it ceases to exist. In the vacuum of space, silence reigns. Stars can collapse, planets can break apart, galaxies can collide, and not a single sound will carry. The silence of the cosmos is not like the silence of a quiet night on Earth. It is absolute, perfect, and eternal. And yet, paradoxically, the universe is never still. Stars tremble with vibrations too slow for ears. Planets resonate with natural frequencies. Even black holes ripple space-time like the surface of a pond. The cosmos hums, but in languages we were not built to hear. On Earth, sound is life itself. A mother's voice calms her infant. A song stirs memory. A siren warns of danger. These are not just vibrations, but signals loaded with meaning. A melody can carry us back to childhood. A single word can spark anger or joy. Sound bridges the gap between minds, turning thought into communication, isolation into connection. Even animals share this truth. Birds mark their territories with song. Wolves howl to rally the pack. Dolphins whistle names unique to each individual. Sound is not just energy, it is identity. And still, silence is always nearby. In anechoic chambers, rooms built to absorb every echo, scientists have tried to capture perfect quiet. Step inside, and the world disappears. There are no footsteps, no reverberation, no outside noise. Yet what most people discover is not peace, but discomfort. Deprived of external sound, they hear their bodies in ways that are usually hidden. The steady thump of the heart, the rush of blood, the faint crackle of joints. Some report hearing their own nervous system buzzing faintly. Stay too long, and the mind begins to invent sounds, filling the emptiness with hallucinations. Silence, it turns out, is not what we imagine. It is not peaceful nothingness, but a mirror that turns our senses inward. The smallest scales reveal another truth. Sound exists even when no ear is there to hear it. Atoms vibrate ceaselessly, even at the lowest possible temperatures. In the solid lattice of a crystal, these vibrations ripple as phonons, quantum particles of sound. They determine how heat moves, how materials respond, how the universe itself holds together. The world is never still. Every object, every particle, every atom hums with motion too small for us to sense. Silence, in the truest sense, does not exist. This duality of sound and silence shapes not just physics, but meaning. In music, the pause between notes matters as much as the notes themselves. In speech, a pause can signal hesitation, emphasis, or finality. In religion, silence is a form of reverence. In nature, silence warns that something is wrong. The jungle falls quiet when a predator approaches. The field goes still before a storm. Silence is not emptiness, but presence in disguise. It is the counterweight that gives sound its depth. To live in a world of sound is to live in constant motion. We are surrounded by waves, washed by vibrations that carry the stories of the world. Yet we are also framed by silence, reminded that every note, every voice, every echo is temporary. The laugh fades, the song ends, the storm passes. What remains is the quiet, waiting for the next vibration. Sound is foundation and mystery alike. It is physics and poetry, fleeting and eternal, ordinary and extraordinary. It defines life, not just as a sense but as a rhythm written into existence itself. From the quiver of atoms to the crash of thunder, sound is the heartbeat of reality. The calm cosmos, in its endless symphony, teaches us that existence is vibration, and silence is only the breath between notes. Together, they create the music of life. To understand sound more deeply, imagine the world stripped of it. A city without noise, no footsteps on pavement, no hum of engines, no chatter of voices drifting from open windows. At first it might seem peaceful, but quickly the absence would feel unnatural, even eerie. Our brains are tuned for constant vibration, for the subtle clues sound provides about life moving around us. Silence on that scale would not be serenity, but a hollow void. We do not just live with sound, we depend on it. Consider the smallest sounds in daily life. The tick of a clock does not only measure time, it reassures us that time is still passing, that the machinery of life is still turning. The kettle's hiss in a kitchen tells us water is heating, that comfort is near. Even the hum of distant traffic carries meaning. The world is awake, others are moving, and we are not alone. Strip these away and the world becomes unmoored, strange, almost unrecognizable. Sound is also direction. When a branch cracks behind us, we turn instinctively. Long before humans understood the science of waves, our ancestors listened to survive. The rustle in the tall grass might mean prey or predator. A sudden silence in the forest meant danger was close. To hear was to live, and those who could not hear were vulnerable. For early humanity, sound was the warning system of the wild, but survival is only the beginning. Sound evolved into expression. The first humans banged sticks on hollow logs, shouted across valleys, or imitated the cries of animals. Rhythm became memory. Patterns of sound helped fix knowledge in the mind, long before writing existed. Oral traditions carried stories for centuries, not in ink but in voices. Songs were maps, laws, and prayers, all preserved in the air. In this way, sound was the first archive of humanity. The nature of sound also reveals itself in the way it shapes space. Step into a cathedral and speak a single word. The sound rises, echoes, and folds back on itself, magnified by stone arches and vaulted ceilings. The architecture itself becomes an instrument, amplifying the sacred. Compare this to a forest, where trees scatter the voice, softening and absorbing its edges, or a desert canyon, where one shout becomes many as echoes chase each other along the rock walls. Sound is not only the source, but also the environment, shaped and reshaped by the places it moves through. The human voice remains one of the most extraordinary instruments in existence. With nothing more than folds of tissue in the throat guided by breath, humans produce a range of tones capable of commanding armies, soothing children, or carrying melody across centuries. Opera singers can project over entire orchestras without microphones. Throat singers in Central Asia create multiple notes at once. Harmony is born entirely of the human body. The voice is proof that sound is not only physical vibration but artistry, a sculpting of air into meaning. And what of music itself? It is a mystery that mere vibrations, organized in patterns, can stir emotions so deep that tears flow without reason. Why should sound arranged in rhythm and harmony affect us so profoundly? Some scientists suggest it mirrors the rhythms of our own bodies, the steady beat of the heart, the cadence of walking, the rise and fall of breath. Others believe music is a kind of evolutionary glue, a way for humans to bond in groups, to dance together, to feel together. Whatever the cause, music demonstrates sound's deepest, magic, its ability to bypass logic and speak directly to emotion. Yet, for all its wonder, sound is fragile. A single barrier of glass can shut it out. A vacuum can erase it entirely. Even within our own species, millions live without hearing, navigating the world through sight and touch alone. But even in silence they feel vibration. Place a hand on a speaker as music plays, and the rhythm is as clear as any melody. Sound does not require ears to exist. It requires only motion. It is everywhere, waiting to be sensed. And then there are sounds that never fade, the ones that haunt memory. The first cry of a newborn, the voice of a loved one long gone, the sound of waves from childhood vacations, or the echo of a city street at night. These are not just experiences but imprints. Long after the vibrations have died away, the brain holds their patterns, playing them again in dreams or nostalgia. Sound, though temporary in physics, becomes eternal in memory. Even the earth itself has a voice. It growls with earthquakes, hisses with wind, crashes with storms. Scientists record the infrasound of volcanoes before eruption, the deep tremors of oceans colliding with cliffs, the vibrations of glaciers cracking apart. The planet speaks constantly, though most of its voice lies below our hearing. We stand in a web of vibration so vast that we detect only fragments, like hearing a few notes of a symphony while the rest plays outside our range. To realize this is to accept that silence is an illusion. What we call silence is only the limit of our senses. Atoms vibrate even in stillness. Stars tremble in the dark. Black holes ripple space-time itself. There is no true quiet, only frequencies beyond perception. The universe hums with voices we will never hear, yet they are always there, shaping reality. And so, Sound is more than a sense. It is a truth of existence, a pulse that binds matter to meaning. It is physics and feeling, survival and song, chaos and order. Without it, the world is a shadow. With it, the world comes alive. Every whisper, every roar, every note is proof that the universe is never still. The calm cosmos, in its infinite vibrations, reminds us that sound is not only what we hear, but what we are. Every heartbeat, every breath, every memory is written in waves. To live is to vibrate, to move in rhythm with existence itself. And between each vibration lies silence, not emptiness, but the waiting pause, the breath that makes the music whole. Sound is not still. It is restless, moving, always carried forward by the medium that holds it. Yet it does not move at a single, unchanging pace. Its speed shifts depending on the world it travels through, shaped entirely by the closeness of particles and the forces that bind them together. In air, on a warm day, sound travels at about 340 meters per second. That is fast enough that a clap echoes across a hall almost instantly, yet slow enough that our eyes often see an event, before our ears confirm it. Place sound in water and it races ahead, more than 4 times faster than in air. In steel, it travels still faster, leaping from atom to atom in an almost seamless chain. The lesson is simple. The denser and more elastic the medium, the swifter the wave moves. This difference reveals itself in countless moments of life. Thunder is the clearest example. A bolt of lightning slices across the sky, seen almost immediately. The sound of its thunder arrives later, rolling across the land like a giant drum. Children count the seconds between the flash and the boom, each second marking distance, roughly 300 meters for every beat. Without knowing the math, they learn the link between sound, speed, and space. The storm becomes not only spectacle but ruler, measuring distance with light and sound together. Fireworks echo with the same delay. A flower of sparks blooms in silence, dazzling the eye, before the crack or the boom arrives. In stadiums, crowds cheer in waves. Those sitting nearest the field roar first, their voices racing upward. A heartbeat later, those farther away add their voices, creating ripples of sound that move like invisible tides. Even a gunshot far across a valley demonstrates the point. The flash comes first, the sharp crack comes later. The brain interprets this sequence instinctively, learning that sight often outruns sound. But the speed of sound is not only shaped by medium. Temperature and pressure also play their role. Warm air carries sound faster than cold air. On a summer afternoon, vibrations leap more quickly from particle to particle. On a winter night they crawl, slowed by the stiffness of chilled molecules. This is why distant noises sometimes seem clearer at night. The cooler air bends and refracts the sound in strange ways, carrying it farther. Humidity too matters. Moist air, filled with water vapor, is actually less dense than dry air, allowing sound to slip more easily through it. A stormy day may make voices travel farther than expected. These subtle shifts mean that the speed of sound is never truly fixed. It is not a universal constant like the speed of light. Instead, it is a mirror of matter, changing with the state of the world. Scientists have learned to calculate it precisely, but long before equations existed, humans experienced it with their senses. They felt it in the roll of thunder, the echo in a canyon, the delay of fireworks blooming overhead. And then came the boundary, the idea that the speed of sound could be approached and even surpassed. Early aviators spoke of strange walls in the sky, invisible barriers that shook their planes when they flew too fast. At speeds near Mach 1, the threshold where an aircraft matches the speed of sound, air pressure builds like a wall in front of the craft. Shock waves form, resisting movement. For years it was thought impossible to pass. The sky itself seemed to refuse. But in October 1947, a man named Chuck Yeager climbed into a rocket-powered plane, the Bell X-1, and pushed through the wall. At 700 miles per hour, his plane shattered the barrier, and for the first time in history, a human being moved faster than sound. Witnesses on the ground heard it not as a steady increase of noise, but as a sudden violent crack, a sonic boom splitting the air. The myth of the unbreakable wall had ended. The sonic boom remains one of the most dramatic signatures of speed. When an object outruns the waves it produces, those waves pile up behind it, forming a cone of pressure. As the cone sweeps across the land, those below hear it as a thunderclap from nowhere, a burst of energy that rattles windows and shakes the chest. Concorde, the legendary supersonic airliner, carried this sound wherever it went, a reminder that it was not just moving quickly, but faster than sound itself. Passengers aboard travelled from London to New York in half the time of ordinary planes, sipping champagne while moving at Mach 2, twice the speed of sound. Even animals live with this boundary. A whip crack, for example, is a miniature sonic boom. The tip of the whip moves so fast it breaks the sound barrier, producing the sharp crack that startles the ear. Some insects beat their wings so quickly that the sound edges toward ultrasonic ranges. Birds, too, shape their calls in ways that exploit the air's carrying capacity, learning instinctively how speed shapes communication. And then there are creatures that use sound as vision. Bats fly in darkness, sending out ultrasonic cries that return as echoes. By measuring how quickly the sound returns, and from what direction, they form images sharper than human sight. Dolphins do the same in water, clicking and whistling, painting their surroundings with waves. The speed of sound in water, so much faster than in air, allows their calls to bounce back with extraordinary detail. To them, sound is not simply communication, it is the very shape of the world. For humans, the speed of sound also reveals itself in subtler ways. The siren of an ambulance shifts as it passes by, rising in pitch as it approaches, dropping as it leaves. This is the Doppler effect, the stretching and compressing of waves as the source moves. We hear it in every passing train, every motorcycle racing down the road. Astronomers extend the same principle to light, measuring galaxies as they rush away from us in the expanding universe. What we notice in sound as a passing siren, they notice in light as redshift, a cosmic echo of motion. The speed of sound is everywhere, though we rarely think of it. It is in the cheers of a stadium, the crack of a whip, the boom of thunder. It is in the engineering of planes, the songs of whales, the cries of bats. It is the measure of air, water, and steel, each revealing its nature by the pace at which vibration moves. It is in the smallest moments, like the delay between lightning and thunder, and in the grandest, like a supersonic jet slicing the sky. And yet, for all its drama, it is still finite. No matter how fast sound moves, it cannot outrun the silence of space. Beyond the air and the oceans, where there are no particles to carry vibration, the speed of sound collapses to nothing. In the vacuum of the cosmos, explosions and collisions unfold in silence more profound than anything on Earth. Sound is a gift of matter, and without matter, it does not exist. The calm cosmos in its countless mediums whispers that sound's speed is not a law written in stone, but a reflection of the world around us. It is fast, it is fleeting, and it is always bound to the medium that carries it. There is something haunting about the idea of speed itself. To move faster than the sound of your own presence, to slip ahead of your echo, is to enter a realm that feels almost unnatural. For most of history, the speed of sound was a boundary not only of physics but of imagination. People assumed it could never be crossed, that air itself would tear apart anything that tried, and yet, as with so many boundaries, humans pressed forward until the impossible became reality. We measure this speed in Mach numbers, each one a multiple of the velocity of sound in air. Mach 1 is the barrier, the threshold where an aircraft travels as fast as the waves it produces. At Mach 2, it is twice that speed. By Mach 5, we call it hypersonic, where the air itself behaves differently, molecules heating and ionizing as if the sky were turning to fire. At these extremes, flight is no longer simply movement, but a battle with the fabric of matter itself. The first step into this new world came in 1947, when a man named Chuck Yeager climbed into a small rocket plane painted bright orange. The Bell X-1 was a bullet with wings, designed not for comfort but for the single purpose of breaking the sound barrier. Pilots before him had tried and failed, their planes shaking apart as pressure waves slammed against them. But Yeager pressed on, rocketing higher, faster, until suddenly the plane slipped free. On the ground, witnesses heard not a gradual rise of noise but a violent crack, an explosion of air announcing that something had just moved faster than sound. The barrier had been broken. Humanity had crossed into a new domain. From that moment, supersonic flight became a symbol of power. The Cold War era birthed machines like the SR-71 Blackbird, a jet so fast it could outrun missiles. At Mach 3, it sliced through the upper atmosphere, its skin glowing from the heat of friction. For decades, it held the record as the fastest air-breathing aircraft ever built, a black arrow carving silence into the stratosphere. Pilots described the experience as otherworldly, the sky darkening to deep blue, the earth curving below, the cockpit trembling with power as they flew faster than the world beneath could comprehend. Civilian life, too, tasted this future with Concorde, the supersonic passenger jet that carried travellers across the Atlantic in little more than 3 hours. To step aboard was to step into another age, a realm where time itself seemed compressed. Passengers sipped champagne at Mach 2, eating lunch in Europe and arriving in America before the dinner tables had been set. Yet outside, on the ground, people felt its presence in another way, the thunderclap of sonic booms trailing behind it, shaking windows and rattling nerves. Supersonic flight was a marvel, but it was also a reminder that speed carries echoes, and those echoes are not always welcome. Shockwaves are the scars left behind when sound is outrun. As an aircraft nears the speed of sound, pressure waves pile up, unable to move away quickly enough. The air compresses into a cone of force, sharp and violent. When the cone passes over the Earth, it is heard as a boom, a single crack that feels like an explosion. Farmers once described the first sonic booms as cannons fired from the heavens. Cities complained of broken windows, frightened animals, startled children. Governments wrestled with the consequences. Could supersonic flight be sustained if every journey left a trail of thunder behind? The answer, at least for a time, was no. Concorde was eventually retired, not only for cost but because its speed carried a price measured in noise, and yet, shockwaves themselves are not only destructive, they are information. Scientists use them to study explosions, meteors, and even the interiors of planets. When a meteor enters Earth's atmosphere, it races ahead of its own sound, creating a shockwave that can flatten forests. The famous Tunguska event of 1908 destroyed thousands of square kilometers of Siberian woodland with a blast so powerful it was heard across continents. The Chelyabinsk meteor in 2013 injured over 1,000 people, its shockwave shattering windows in a city miles away from where it passed. In those moments, the speed of sound becomes not just a number, but a force of history, rewriting landscapes in seconds. Nature has always known these truths. A whip cracks because the tip outruns sound, creating a miniature boom. Volcanic eruptions release infrasound waves that travel for thousands of kilometers, carrying warnings long before ash and fire reach the sky. Tsunamis ripple with underwater shockwaves, vibrations racing across oceans faster than ships can follow. Even animals learn to use the pace of sound for survival. A bat measures distance by the return of its cry, calculating how far an insect hovers in the dark. A dolphin senses the flutter of a fish's fin through echoes in water, timing each return against the speed that sound allows. Humans too bend these principles into tools. Submarines send pings through water, listening for the echo that returns. The time it takes reveals distance, the strength reveals size, and the pattern reveals shape. The sea becomes an invisible map written in sound, navigated by echoes. Seismologists use vibrations racing through the earth to read its layers, the speed of sound in rock revealing secrets buried miles below. Doctors use ultrasound, high-frequency sound racing through tissue, bouncing back with images of organs and bones. Everywhere we turn, the speed of sound becomes a measuring stick, a way to uncover what cannot be seen. But the fascination with supersonic and hypersonic speeds remains strongest in the human imagination. We are creatures drawn to boundaries, to the edges of possibility. The sound barrier was once thought impassable, yet we crossed it. Now we dream of hypersonic travel, aircraft that could carry us from one side of the planet to the other in an hour. Engineers envision engines that can breathe air at Mach 6, spacecraft that ride shockwaves into orbit, weapons that strike faster than defense systems can react. The future of speed lies not just in moving faster, but in rethinking what sound itself means as it is surpassed. In the cosmos, the idea grows stranger still. Inside Jupiter, the pressure of hydrogen becomes so great that sound would move at thousands of meters per second, far faster than in air or steel. In the dense matter of neutron stars, where atoms themselves collapse, Scientists calculate that the speed of sound may reach unimaginable extremes, vibrations racing through material so compressed that a teaspoon would weigh billions of tons. To speak of sound here is almost meaningless, and yet the principle holds. Vibration still moves, still carries energy, still has a pace set by matter itself. To live in a world shaped by sound is to live with boundaries that are both real and symbolic. The speed of sound is not the ultimate wall, but it is a reminder that nature sets limits. To break them requires courage, ingenuity, and sometimes recklessness. Pilots who first crossed Mach 1 did not just change aviation, they changed our sense of what was possible. Children who count the seconds between lightning and thunder learn not just about storms, but about the structure of reality. Every echo, every delay, every boom carries a lesson about how sound moves and how matter responds. The calm cosmos, in its supersonic whispers and hypersonic roars, shows us that speed is not just motion, but revelation. Each Mach number tells a story, each shockwave a signature, each silence a reminder that beyond the medium lies the void. Sound travels, transforms and fades, but always it teaches. To hear is to know distance, to break the barrier is to know daring, and to imagine sound in the densest corners of the universe is to glimpse the extremes of matter itself. Silence is never what we imagine it to be. We think of it as an absence, a void, a state where nothing moves and nothing speaks. But on Earth, silence is only an illusion, a surface impression that vanishes the moment we listen more closely. In the quietest forests the air stirs. Leaves murmur against one another. A distant insect vibrates its wings. Somewhere far away a bird cuts the stillness with a call so faint it barely reaches us. Even when we think we have found perfect quiet, sound persists. It hides, it softens, but it does not disappear. Step into a library late at night and hush your breath. The world seems still. Yet as your ears adjust, you begin to notice the hum of fluorescent lights overhead, the distant shuffle of footsteps echoing from another room, the faint rattle of a window pane as the wind brushes past. Silence, it turns out, is filled with whispers. Our senses hunger for stimulation, and when the obvious sounds fade, the subtle ones rise. Even in a sealed room, where the outside world is locked away, silence betrays itself. Sit long enough, and you begin to hear the rhythm of your own body, the steady thump of the heart, the rushing hiss of blood in the veins, the faint crackle of joints shifting, the small vibrations of breath moving in and out. The body is an orchestra that never ceases. Silence cannot erase it. It only amplifies it, revealing what we usually ignore. Scientists have tried to capture true silence. Anechoic chambers, rooms designed to absorb every echo, are built for this purpose. Step inside and the outside world vanishes. No footsteps reverberate. No voices bounce back. You speak and the sound dies instantly, swallowed by the walls. People who enter often report the strangest of sensations. Some hear their heartbeat louder than they ever thought possible, a pounding drum in their chest. Others notice the flow of blood, a faint rushing inside their skull. Some claim to hear their lungs creaking, their stomach shifting, even the buzz of their nervous system. Silence does not free them from sound. It forces them to confront the sounds within themselves. For some, the experience is calming. They sink into themselves, wrapped in the rhythm of life that had always been there but unnoticed. For others, it is unsettling, even terrifying. Deprived of external noise, the brain begins to invent it. Hallucinations bloom, phantom whispers, faint music, strange echoes that exist only in the mind. In silence, the brain refuses to be still. It conjures sound to fill the void. The truth is clear. Humans are not built for absolute silence. It is alien to us, unnatural, as if the world itself had stopped breathing. Culturally, silence has always carried meaning. In monasteries, chants echo through stone halls, each note followed by long intervals of stillness. The pause is not emptiness, it is reverence, a frame that gives weight to the sacred sound before it. Musicians know this too. A symphony is not only notes strung together, it is rests, pauses, moments of quiet that give shape to melody. Without silence, music would be chaos, unrelenting noise with no rhythm, no contour, no breath. The pauses between notes are as essential as the notes themselves. Silence is part of the composition, the negative space that makes art possible. Religions across the world have embraced silence as a path to transcendence. In meditation, silence is the space where the mind turns inward, where external distractions fall away and inner truths surface. In prayer, silence is the moment of listening, when words cease and openness begins. Silence becomes a form of communication with the divine, not through speech, but through stillness. The weight of unspoken reverence is often greater than the loudest chant. Psychologically, silence can soothe or disturb, depending on how it arrives. A person walking alone in a meadow may find silence peaceful, the mind settling into calm as the noise of daily life drifts away. The same person, walking through an unfamiliar alley at night, may find silence terrifying. Every absence of sound becomes a warning. The silence is not calm but anticipation, the pause before something unseen emerges. Our relationship with silence is shaped by context, by fear, by expectation. Nature too uses silence as signal. In jungles, the sudden fall of sound is a warning that predators are near. In open fields, the quiet before a storm carries a charge, the air heavy, the world holding its breath. Animals notice before we do. Birds stop singing. Insects fall silent. The absence of sound speaks louder than noise. Hunters and farmers alike know this truth. Silence can mean safety, but it can also mean danger. Even in human life, silence becomes a language. In conversations, pauses matter as much as words. A long hesitation can mean doubt. A quiet moment can mean agreement or anger or love unspoken. Between couples, silence may carry more intimacy than speech. Between strangers, it may carry more weight than any explanation. We fill silence with meaning, even when it has none, because we are creatures built to listen, to interpret, to find signals in the absence of sound. And yet, we rarely experience silence willingly. We surround ourselves with sound, music in our headphones, chatter from the television, the hum of traffic outside the window. When the noise fades, we rush to replace it. True quiet feels heavy, unsettling. Perhaps it is because silence reminds us of things we fear: isolation, emptiness, the inevitability of death. To sit in silence is to confront ourselves, without distraction, without escape. For some, that confrontation is unbearable. For others, it is the only path to peace. In literature and art, silence is often portrayed as symbolic. The pause before a confession, the quiet after a battle, the silence of a snowy landscape where even footsteps are muffled. These moments carry weight because they contrast with sound. Without noise, silence is meaningless. Without silence, noise has no shape. The two define each other as shadow defines light. The calm cosmos, in its silences, teaches us that absence is not emptiness but balance. On Earth, silence never truly exists. It is always broken by the hum of electricity, the rush of blood, the whisper of wind. And yet, in our imagination, silence carries power. It is the breath before the song, the pause before the storm, the stillness that makes sound matter. Silence on Earth is only an illusion, but in space, silence is reality. Here, beyond the fragile film of atmosphere, sound has no medium to move through. There is no air to compress, no water to ripple, no steel to vibrate. In space, silence is not the absence of sound. It is the impossibility of sound itself. Even the most violent events unfold without a whisper. Stars explode, planets collide, asteroids shatter, and no human ear would ever hear it. The universe moves, but it does not speak. Astronauts have tried to describe this silence, and their words always fall short. Inside their suits, there is sound, the hiss of oxygen, the steady thump of their own hearts, the faint creak of machinery. Inside the spacecraft, there is the constant hum of fans, pumps, and electronics, artificial noise that keeps them alive. But step beyond, even in imagination, and the awareness of silence presses like a weight. Outside the walls, beyond the visor, there is nothing. No whisper of wind, no echo, no background noise to remind them that the world is alive. Space is not quiet in the way a forest is quiet or a church is quiet. It is a silence absolute, deeper than anything the human body was built to endure. When Apollo astronauts first stood on the moon, they saw a world that looked familiar: rocks, dust, mountains, horizons, but felt utterly alien because it was silent. On Earth, even the most barren desert has its murmurs: the wind carrying sand, the wings of an insect, the distant cry of a bird. On the moon, there was nothing. Their boots pressed into dust, but there was no crunch to be heard. Tools struck rock, but there was no clang. Explosions of rockets firing in the distance released only vibration, transmitted not through air, but through suits and bodies. The astronauts described it as eerie, as if they were acting on a stage with no audience, their movements divorced from the natural feedback of sound. Silence in space is unsettling not only because it is absolute, but because it is endless. On Earth, silence is temporary. A pause before a storm, a moment of stillness before someone speaks. Even in an anechoic chamber, we know that the walls around us are holding the silence in place. But in space, there are no walls, no boundaries. The silence stretches forever, in every direction without limit. To imagine such silence is to confront infinity itself. And yet, even here, the universe is not truly still. Sound cannot travel in vacuum, but vibration exists in other forms. Gravitational waves ripple through space-time when massive objects collide. Electromagnetic radiation hums across the cosmos. Astronomers have learned to translate these invisible signals into sound, creating sonifications that allow us to hear what space is saying in another language. The deep rumble of a black hole, the oscillations of stars, the eerie chirp of two neutron stars, stars colliding. These are not sounds in the traditional sense, but they are the music of the universe, shifted into ranges our ears can perceive. Space is silent, but the silence is filled with hidden songs waiting to be translated. For astronauts, silence can be both comfort and threat. In the International Space Station, they live surrounded by machine noise. Pumps and fans hum constantly, because without them, air would not circulate, heat would not dissipate, life would not continue. The noise becomes a kind of reassurance. As long as the hum continues, they are safe. But when something falls silent, a fan that should be spinning, a pump that should be moving, the absence is a warning. In space, silence is not peace but alarm, a sign that the fragile balance of survival may have shifted. Psychologically, humans struggle with silence. On long missions, astronauts speak of moments when the immensity of space weighs on them, the awareness that outside their walls there is not just distance but emptiness. The silence becomes symbolic, a reminder of how alone they are. Some describe it as awe, a confrontation with the sublime. Others describe it as fear, the sense of being adrift in a universe that is indifferent, endless, and mute. Writers and philosophers have long used silence as a metaphor for the universe. To look at the stars and feel no sound is to realize how small we are, how fragile our noise is in the vastness. The earth hums with voices, traffic, storms, music, but step back, even a little, and it is gone. From space, the earth is a glowing sphere turning in utter silence. Cities do not roar, oceans do not crash, wars do not thunder. All the noise of humanity fades into nothing, inaudible against the great void. The silence strips away illusion. It shows us that our voices are local, temporary, fragile. And yet, in this silence, meaning grows. It is precisely because space is silent that we listen so carefully to its signals. Telescopes capture the faintest whispers of radiation. Antennas spread across deserts gather radio waves that have travelled for billions of years. Detectors listen for gravitational waves, ripples caused by cataclysms we can never hear directly. We translate silence into sound, turning the absence of air into the presence of information. In doing so, we give the cosmos a voice, not one it naturally speaks, but one we create so that we can understand. The silence of space is also a test of endurance. If humans ever travel farther, to Mars, to deep space, the silence will become even more profound. Days and weeks without the background noise of Earth. No wind, no rain, no birds at dawn, only the hum of machines and the awareness that outside there is nothing. Psychologists already prepare astronauts for this, knowing that silence can press on the mind, eroding comfort, breeding loneliness. But they also know that silence can inspire. In that stillness, many astronauts report the overview effect, a shift in perspective when seeing Earth as a fragile sphere in the void. The silence does not crush them, it humbles them. It makes them realize that noise is temporary, but the silence of the cosmos is eternal. In art, silence in space has often been misrepresented. Movies fill the vacuum with explosions and roars, imagining battles that thunder across the stars. But reality is stranger, and perhaps more beautiful. If you stood on a distant moon and watched two asteroids collide, you would see dust bloom silently. You would feel the ground tremble beneath your feet, but you would hear nothing. The most violent events would be played out as silent films, visible but mute, a reminder that the universe does not care for the senses we rely on. The calm cosmos speaks most clearly in its silence. It teaches us that sound is local, fragile, tied to matter. It reminds us that our voices, our songs, our laughter are treasures of Earth, rare in the grand scheme of things. Out there, in the endless dark, silence is the default. Sound is the exception. Silence is the rule. And so, in space, silence becomes not just an absence, but a presence. It is the canvas upon which the universe paints its light. It is the stage upon which stars are born and die. It is the truth that waits beneath every vibration. On Earth, we run from silence, fill it with noise. In space, silence is unavoidable, infinite, eternal. To enter it is to be reminded that we are small, fragile, brief, and yet also miraculous, because in this sea of silence, we are among the few places where sound exists at all. The calm cosmos, in its absolute quiet, reveals that silence is not the enemy of sound, but its foundation. Without silence, there would be no contrast, no rhythm, no meaning. Silence is not emptiness, but the infinite pause in which the music of existence finds its place. Sound has always been more than vibration. It is energy that does not merely travel but transforms. It reaches the body and moves deeper, into memory, into feeling, into the very rhythms of life itself. Where light dazzles the eyes and touch shapes the skin, sound penetrates, slipping past barriers, weaving its way into mind and spirit. It can calm or disturb, inspire or destroy, but in its gentlest form, sound heals. Long before science could measure frequencies or scan brain activity, humans instinctively turned to sound for comfort. Mothers everywhere sing to their children. Across cultures and centuries, the lullaby is nearly universal, a soft melody, a repeated rhythm, a voice shaping air into safety. Infants respond even before they understand language. The rising and falling tones quiet fear, slow the heartbeat, lull restless eyes towards sleep. It is not the words that matter, but the sound itself, the gentle vibration of care. In these moments, sound is medicine in its purest form. Ancient rituals discovered this truth again and again. In monasteries, monks chant deep, resonant tones that seem to vibrate not only in the air but in the body of the listener. In deserts and forests, shamans strike drums in steady, hypnotic patterns, guiding the mind into altered states of awareness. In the mountains of Tibet, bowls are struck to produce shimmering overtones that linger long after the first impact, waves that seem to hang in the air as if time itself has slowed. These practices were not born from laboratories, but from intuition. People felt the way sound changed them, and so they used it, sometimes for healing, sometimes for prayer, sometimes to open doors of perception that could not be reached in silence. Modern science has begun to confirm what tradition long knew. Music therapy is now prescribed in hospitals, not as entertainment but as treatment. Patients with Alzheimer's disease sometimes recall memories thought lost when they hear familiar songs. A melody unlocks what silence could not. Stroke victims, struggling with speech, often find that singing can bypass damaged pathways in the brain. Rhythmic exercises with music can retrain motion, helping patients walk or move with greater balance. For those battling anxiety or pain, soft harmonies ease breathing, lower blood pressure, and calm nerves. It is as though sound tunes the body, restoring balance where chaos has crept in. Ultrasound, sound pitched far beyond hearing, has become one of medicine's most versatile tools. With it, doctors peer into the body without cutting. Waves bounce from organs and bones, painting images invisible to the naked eye. Expectant parents see the first flicker of their child's heartbeat through sound. Surgeons use focused ultrasound to break apart kidney stones, shattering them into fragments without a single incision. Scientists experiment with using sound to burn away tumours or deliver drugs directly to where they are needed, guided not by knives but by vibrations. Sound, inaudible and unseen, becomes a scalpel of extraordinary precision. But the healing power of sound is not only clinical, it reaches into psychology, into the places where logic cannot go. Music can lift the weary, stir courage in the fearful, unite strangers in joy. A national anthem sung by thousands carries a weight no speech could equal. A hymn in a cathedral fills the air with reverence that silence alone could never achieve. Protest songs rally movements, turning voices into weapons stronger than steel. Sound connects people not just through meaning, but through resonance. Bodies move together when drums beat. Voices align in choirs not just in notes but in breath. To be surrounded by sound is to be woven into something larger than the self. On the level of the body, the effects are measurable. A steady rhythm can entrain the heartbeat, guiding it slower or faster. Drumming at certain tempos has been shown to synchronize with brainwaves, inducing trance or relaxation. Harmonious sounds trigger the release of dopamine, the brain's reward chemical, while dissonant or jarring sounds raise stress hormones, preparing the body for fight or flight. What ancient traditions called spiritual or mystical, science now describes as neurochemical. But the truth is the same. Sound alters us. It always has. Even in small, everyday ways, we feel this power. The song that makes a runner's pace lighter, pushing them farther. The playlist that helps someone focus late at night when silence would make the mind wander. The melody that carries someone through grief, giving voice to sorrow they could not otherwise express. Sound fills the spaces where words fail. It provides shape to emotions too vast or too subtle to fit into language. The healing power of sound extends beyond individuals to communities. Festivals erupt with drums and dance, not only to celebrate but to restore connection among people. Ceremonies in every culture use song to mark transitions, birth, marriage, death. At these thresholds of life, words alone would be too fragile. Sound gives them strength. It binds, it comforts, it heals. The calm cosmos, in its gentle vibrations, reminds us that sound's power is not only to inform but to restore. It is the pulse that steadies the heart, the melody that softens sorrow, the vibration that connects one life to another. In the right hands, sound becomes a medicine older than history, as essential as breath itself. Sound heals, but sound also destroys. The same invisible wave that soothes a child to sleep can, when magnified, tear steel apart and bring down mighty structures. Vibration is not gentle by nature, it is simply energy, and energy does not choose how it is used. To understand the true power of sound, we must see it not only as comfort, but as force, a force that can unmake as easily as it creates. The principle that makes this possible is resonance. Every object has a natural frequency at which it vibrates. Strike a wine glass and it rings with a clear tone, that tone being the frequency at which the glass prefers to move. Match that frequency strongly enough from the outside, and the object will vibrate more and more violently until it can no longer hold together. A singer who finds the right note, sung with enough strength, can shatter glass. It is not magic, but physics. Sound aligning with structure, resonance amplifying vibration, until it becomes destruction. History holds greater tragedies of resonance. In 1940, the Tacoma Narrows Bridge in Washington swayed with the wind. At first, the movement was gentle, almost hypnotic, but the wind matched the bridge's natural frequency, and soon the sway grew uncontrollable. The entire structure twisted like a ribbon, then collapsed into the water below. Though the cause was wind, the effect was vibration. A massive structure destroyed by resonance. No explosion, no earthquake, only motion amplified until it became catastrophe. Engineers now design buildings, towers and bridges with resonance in mind. They know that vibration can bring down what weight alone cannot. Earthquakes exploit this mercilessly. The ground shakes at certain frequencies, and buildings tuned to those frequencies collapse. The sound of an earthquake may be low, a rumble deep below, but its vibrations travel through the earth itself, breaking roads, snapping steel, toppling homes. In those moments, sound is no longer something heard. It is felt, experienced as the world itself groaning with destructive energy. Volcanoes too reveal this side of sound. Before eruptions, infrasound waves, vibrations too low for humans to hear, ripple through the ground and sky. Animals often sense them first, fleeing before the eruption occurs. When the mountain finally explodes, the shock waves can travel across continents. In 1883, Krakatoa erupted with a sound so powerful it circled the globe multiple times. People thousands of kilometers away reported hearing it, and the shock waves registered on instruments worldwide. That eruption killed tens of thousands, reshaping landscapes and reminding humanity that sound can carry death as easily as song. Tsunamis, though made of water, also tell their stories in sound. As massive waves race across oceans, they create pressure disturbances that travel faster than the water itself. Instruments now detect these infrasound signatures, giving warning of waves before they arrive. For those who cannot hear them, the destruction is sudden and merciless. Sound in these moments is not a gentle vibration, but a herald of disaster. Humans, of course, have not ignored the destructive side of sound. Militaries have experimented for decades with sonic weapons, tools designed not to kill outright but to disable, terrify, and disperse. LRADS, long-range acoustic devices, focus intense beams of sound that cause unbearable pain to those caught in their path. Protesters described the experience as overwhelming, disorienting, as if their very skulls vibrated with pressure. Infrasound weapons, using vibrations below human hearing, have been tested to induce nausea, anxiety, and dread. The body feels the waves even if the ears cannot hear them. Sound becomes a weapon of control, an invisible whip lashing against the mind. During the Cold War, rumours spread of experiments in acoustic warfare. Machines designed to shatter walls with resonance, to disable crews with infrasound, to weaponize the very air. While many of these remained secret or unproven, the fascination was clear. Sound, invisible and unstoppable, seemed the perfect tool of dominance. Even today, acoustic weapons are deployed for crowd control, reminders that sound can wound without leaving scars. Explosions demonstrate sound's raw force in the most familiar way. When a bomb detonates, much of its energy is released as a shockwave, a wall of compressed air racing outward. This is sound magnified into violence. Windows shatter miles away. Walls crumble. Bodies are thrown down not by shrapnel but by pressure alone. Fireworks are only a fraction of this power, harmless to admire. But scale it upward, and the sound becomes devastation. Even in ordinary life, sound can harm. A jackhammer on a city street rattles teeth and bones. Prolonged exposure to loud music damages hearing, leaving ears ringing long after the concert ends. Factory workers lose their ability to hear after years of machines pounding at 100 decibels or more. Jet engines, roaring at airports, produce waves strong enough to injure those nearby. These are not the dramatic destructions of bridges or volcanoes, but they are destruction all the same, slow, cumulative, the erosion of the delicate structures within the ear. In nature, sound is used for both creation and destruction. Dolphins can stun fish with powerful clicks, disorienting them before the kill. Certain shrimp snap their claws with such speed that the collapsing bubble produces a shockwave strong enough to kill small prey. Even animals have discovered that vibration, focused and fierce, can become a weapon. The paradox of sound is that it carries both life and death, comfort and terror. The same physics that make a lullaby soothe a child also allow a bomb to shatter buildings. It is not the wave that is good or evil, but the use to which it is put. Sound is energy, neutral in itself but devastating in its potential. Philosophers might see in this duality a reflection of humanity itself. We create symphonies that uplift the soul, and we create canons that crush it. We design chants to bring peace, and we design machines to instill fear. Sound mirrors us, our tenderness and our violence, our creativity and our destruction, and so we must respect it. Sound is not merely entertainment or background. It is a force, invisible but immense, capable of shaping matter, shaping memory, shaping fate. In its healing it unites us. In its fury it humbles us. To live with sound is to live with both gifts and dangers, with the lullaby and the thunder, the song and the scream. The calm cosmos, in its resonances and its ruptures, reminds us that sound is power, power to comfort, power to destroy. It asks us to listen not only with wonder but with caution, for every wave carries both possibility and peril. There are sounds around us that we never hear. They move through the air, through the ground, through the water, pressing against our bodies, with waves so deep and slow that our ears cannot detect them. We call this realm infrasound, vibrations below 20 Hz, frequencies too low for human perception, but not too low for the world itself. They surround us always, a hidden soundtrack of the planet, carrying secrets that most of us will never notice. To step into the world of infrasound is to realize that human hearing is a narrow band in a vast spectrum. What we call silence often hums with energy just beyond our reach. The Earth itself groans with these low vibrations. Tectonic plates grinding deep below the crust release infrasound long before. Earthquakes are felt on the surface. Storms produce deep rumbles as winds roar and clash in the upper atmosphere. Oceans create constant background tones as waves collide, their energy spreading across entire basins. To us this is nothing, but to instruments and to certain animals it is the voice of the earth. Elephants are masters of this hidden language. On the savannah they rumble in low notes that drift across miles. These sounds, too deep for human ears, travel through both air and ground, reaching the feet of other elephants who sense the vibrations through sensitive tissue. A herd scattered across the plain can remain connected. Mothers calling calves, males warning rivals, families reuniting. Scientists have tracked these calls, measuring how a single rumble can travel 6 or more kilometers, carrying clear meaning in what to us is silence. For elephants, infrasound is not mystery but conversation. Whales too use infrasound to stitch the oceans together. Blue whales produce notes so low and powerful that they can travel across entire ocean basins. One call may echo thousands of kilometers, connecting individuals separated by vast distances. For them, the sea is not quiet but filled with voices rolling endlessly, a chorus in registers too deep for human perception. These songs carry not only emotion but survival, guidance during migrations, warnings of danger, signals to mates. To live in the ocean is to live in a world of infrasound. Even smaller creatures make use of this hidden realm. Giraffes hum at night in tones too low for us to hear, their calls bonding herds in the darkness. Rhinoceroses, hippos, and even some big cats rely on deep frequencies that slip past human senses. The animal kingdom is filled with voices just beyond our reach, proof that our ears are not the measure of reality but merely one tool shaped by evolution. For humans, infrasound often makes its presence known not through hearing but through feeling. People exposed to low frequencies sometimes report unease, dizziness, even fear. Rooms may feel haunted, filled with a sense of presence when in fact the cause is a standing wave of infrasound shaking objects and bodies in subtle ways. Certain frequencies can vibrate the eyes, creating blurred vision or strange shadows. In old cathedrals or caves, where low vibrations resonate, people sometimes described encounters with ghosts. Today, scientists suggest it may have been the Earth itself, whispering in tones too low to hear, stirring the imagination with vibrations mistaken for spirits. The destructive side of infrasound has been felt too. When volcanoes prepare to erupt, they release powerful low-frequency waves that travel thousands of kilometers. Scientists now use these signals as warnings, a way to predict eruptions before they occur. Infrasound from large storms or tsunamis is also tracked, providing early alerts of disasters still unfolding far away. The very qualities that make infrasound strange, its depth, its distance, its invisibility, also make it useful. We listen not with ears but with machines, turning the inaudible into data that can save lives. Infrasound also carries the weight of human history. In the 20th century, governments realized that nuclear explosions produced powerful low-frequency waves that could travel across the globe. By building networks of sensors, they could monitor tests anywhere on Earth, ensuring that treaties were honored and hidden detonations discovered. Today, the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty Organization still uses infrasound monitoring stations scattered worldwide, silently listening for blasts that may never come. In this way, Infrasound has become not only a natural voice but a tool of politics and survival. But beyond science, the mystery of infrasound lingers in human imagination. It is unsettling precisely because it is half felt, half heard. A church organ playing its lowest pipes can stir emotions without the listener knowing why, filling the chest with vibrations that bypass the ear. Large machines, storms, and distant explosions can send shivers through the body without clear cause. Infrasound unsettles because it reminds us of forces we cannot control, voices we cannot quite hear but cannot ignore. The world of infrasound is a reminder that human senses are narrow. We live surrounded by conversations that are not ours, songs that stretch across oceans, warnings written into the ground beneath us. To open this hidden world is to realize that silence is never silent. It hums with tones we will never hear directly, a foundation beneath all the sounds we do perceive. The earth is alive with vibrations, and only a fraction reach our ears. The calm cosmos in its deep rumblings reminds us that sound is larger than perception. What we hear is only a sliver of what exists. Beneath it lies a realm of voices too vast and too deep for us to follow, carrying across continents and seas, shaping life in ways we barely understand. To live in this world is to live in constant company with silence that is not silence, but the unheard sound of existence itself. If infrasound is the Earth's hidden rumble, ultrasound is its secret shimmer, a realm of frequencies too high for us to hear, but alive with life, technology, and possibility. Humans are tuned to a narrow band between 20 and 20,000 Hz. Below it lies infrasound, above it ultrasound. Yet beyond those limits, the world vibrates on, unconcerned with what our ears can or cannot perceive. Bats rule the night with ultrasound. Their cries, pitched far above our hearing, ripple through the darkness, bounce off insects, walls, trees, and return as echoes. To us, the night may feel quiet, but to bats it is alive with information. They navigate with a precision that borders on miraculous, detecting prey as small as a mosquito in complete darkness. Each call is a pulse of high-frequency sound, each echo a map. Their world is not one of light and shadow, but of vibrations painting the air in the invisible strokes. To imagine their perception is to imagine a sense we cannot share, a form of sight woven entirely from sound. Dolphins use ultrasound too, crafting clicks and whistles that travel through water with remarkable clarity. Their echolocation is so sharp they can detect the difference between a hollow and a solid object, between a fish filled with bones and one filled with water. They can sense the heartbeat of another dolphin from meters away. To them, the ocean is transparent, filled with vibrations that reveal what the eye cannot see. Their social bonds are tied to these high-pitched calls, signatures unique to individuals, voices above human hearing that carry intimacy across the sea. Whales, though famous for their low songs, also use ultrasonic bursts, especially in hunting. Toothed whales stun schools of fish with sharp clicks, overwhelming their senses and driving them together. Some species release such powerful ultrasonic pulses that they can disorient prey entirely. The ocean, already rich with infrasound, is equally alive with ultrasound, a layered symphony of frequencies stretching far beyond our limited range. Even insects play in this realm. Moths have evolved ears tuned to the ultrasonic cries of bats, allowing them to dodge the hunters of the night. Some species of crickets and grasshoppers chirp in ultrasonic ranges, invisible to us but perfectly clear to each other. The air, even in a quiet field, is filled with buzzing signals beyond our perception. We walk through it every day, unaware of the hidden conversations around us. Humans discovered ultrasound not through instinct but through science. In the early 20th century, researchers realized that high-frequency waves could be used to explore what light and touch could not. During World War I, sonar was developed to detect submarines beneath the sea, sending pulses of sound that bounce back to reveal hidden shapes. This principle was soon applied to medicine. By directing ultrasonic waves into the body and measuring how they returned, doctors could create images of organs, tissues, even unborn children. Today, ultrasound is one of the most common tools in healthcare. Expectant parents see their child's first movements through sound, grainy images built from echoes. Surgeons guide their hands with ultrasonic imaging. Specialists break apart kidney stones with focused sound, shattering them into fragments without knives or scars. Therapists use ultrasound to speed healing of injuries, waves massaging tissue beneath the skin. Scientists even experiment with using ultrasound to open tiny gateways in the brain, allowing medicines to reach areas once thought inaccessible. The scalpel of the future may not cut with steel, but with sound. Industry, too, harnesses ultrasound. Engineers use it to clean delicate instruments, vibrations shaking loose dirt invisible to the eye. Factories use it to weld plastics and metals together, heat generated not by flame but by sound waves colliding at microscopic levels. Underwater explorers use ultrasonic sonar to map the ocean floor, revealing mountains and valleys in the deep that light will never reach. Archaeologists probe ruins with ultrasonic scanners, peering through walls without touching them. Wherever the eye is blind, ultrasound extends perception. Yet beyond utility, ultrasound also carries a kind of mystery. We know it exists, we can measure it, create it, control it, but we cannot hear it naturally. To us it is absence, silence, nothing. And yet to other creatures it is everything. For a bat, ultrasound is survival. For a dolphin, it is intimacy. For a scientist, it is revelation. For us, it is a reminder that perception is limited, that reality is not confined to the narrow band of frequencies our ears can detect. There is beauty in this hidden world. Imagine walking through a city at night, hearing not traffic or voices, but the ultrasonic calls of bats weaving overhead, the high-frequency clicks of insects buzzing through the air, the faint pulses of devices scanning beneath the ground. The world would be transformed, layered with signals we cannot normally sense. What feels silent would be alive. What feels empty would be full. Even art has touched this realm. Some composers and sound designers experiment with ultrasonic tones, blending them into music to affect listeners in subtle ways. While the conscious ear does not register them, the body responds. Some report feelings of unease, others of calm, triggered by frequencies they do not hear but still perceive. Science suggests that even when we cannot consciously detect ultrasound, our bodies may respond to its presence. We are not as deaf to this hidden world as we imagine. The duality of ultrasound mirrors that of sound itself. It can heal or harm. High-frequency machines can damage tissue if misused. Prolonged exposure to powerful ultrasonic devices can cause discomfort, dizziness, or worse. Yet when guided carefully, the same waves reveal unborn life, repair injuries, map the unseen. Like all sound, ultrasound is energy, and energy holds no morality. It is only as gentle or as dangerous as the hand that wields it. Philosophically, ultrasound and infrasound remind us of humility. We like to believe we perceive the world fully, that what we hear and see is reality. But reality is broader, stranger, richer. We live inside a narrow band of perception, blind to most of the spectrum around us. Below us, infrasound rolls through the earth. Above us, ultrasound fills the air and water with signals and songs. We are surrounded by voices we will never hear directly, a constant reminder that our senses are not rulers of truth but fragments of it. The calm cosmos, in its hidden frequencies, whispers that silence is not truly silent. Beneath hearing and beyond it lies a world alive with motion. To animals, it is language. To scientists, it is knowledge. To us, it is both mystery and potential. Ultrasound, like infrasound, expands our sense of existence, showing us that sound is not limited to what we hear, but stretches into realms we can only imagine. Sound has always travelled freely through the air, but for most of human history it vanished the moment it was made. A drumbeat could echo across valleys, but once it faded, it was gone. A speech might stir a crowd, but once spoken, it could not be preserved. The human voice, for all its power, was fleeting. Only with the rise of technology did sound gain permanence, reach, and transformation. The story of sound in technology is the story of how humans captured the ephemeral and turned it into something eternal. The earliest tools of sound were simple but profound. Tribal drums spoke across distances, their rhythms carrying messages from village to village. Horns carved from animal bone announced gatherings or warned of danger. Bells tolled across fields, summoning communities to prayer or marking the passing of hours. These instruments did more than produce noise. They encoded meaning into sound, using rhythm, pitch, and repetition as language. In many ways, they were the first technologies of sound. extensions of human voices into tools that amplified reach and authority. The true revolution began not with sound itself, but with silence, the dots and dashes of the telegraph. In the 19th century, Samuel Morse devised a way to send electrical pulses across wires. These pulses were not voices, not music, but they carried rhythm, the essence of sound stripped down to its barest form. Operators tapped keys in distant cities, and others listened to the clicks on receivers, translating them into words. The telegraph turned sound into signal, compressing meaning into time itself. For the first time, information travelled faster than a human could carry it. The world began to shrink, tied together by coded vibrations that needed no voice at all. But humanity longed to hear itself across distance. The telegraph carried words but not voices. Then came the telephone. In 1876, Alexander Graham Bell spoke the first words transmitted through a wire. "Mr. Watson, come here. I want to see you." It was not poetry, not prophecy, but it was miraculous. The vibrations of one man's voice travelled through copper, transformed into electrical patterns, then back into sound on the other end. Distance was erased. For the first time, human voices could leap across miles. The telephone reshaped families, businesses, governments. It gave sound new wings. Edison's phonograph soon added another miracle: memory. For centuries, voices died as soon as they were spoken. But with a sheet of tinfoil wrapped around a cylinder, Edison captured sound and played it back. A machine spoke with a human's voice, not in imitation, but in recording. It was a haunting experience, as if ghosts had been summoned from air. The phonograph led to the gramophone, to records, to a world where music, speeches, and laughter could be preserved for generations. For the first time, people could hear the voices of the dead. History acquired sound, not just text. The fragility of memory was replaced by grooves in wax and vinyl. Radio extended sound into the ether. In the early 20th century, families gathered around wooden boxes that glowed faintly and crackled with static, waiting for voices to arrive from nowhere. A farmhand in Kansas could hear a speech from Washington. A child in Berlin could listen to jazz from New Orleans. Nations discovered the power of sound broadcast without wires, carried invisibly through the air. Radio became entertainment, education, propaganda, and connection. It carried the music of Duke Ellington, the fireside chats of Franklin Roosevelt, the chilling reports of war from correspondents abroad. For the first time, the world experienced collective listening, millions hearing the same sound at the same time, sharing emotion across distances. Sound changed cinema as well. Silent films were once accompanied by live musicians in theatres, but when synchronized sound arrived, the medium transformed. Audiences gasped when they first heard actors speak on screen. Music scores, sound effects, dialogue, all added layers of immersion. A gunshot could startle, a whispered line could seduce, a song could carry a story forward. Sound turned moving pictures into full experiences, binding sight and hearing together. Every step of technology reshaped culture. The gramophone allowed music to travel from performers to living rooms. Radio created stars whose faces no one had seen, but whose voices were instantly recognized. The telephone changed business, collapsing distances that had once kept people apart. Each invention was not just a tool, but a redefinition of presence. Voices no longer needed bodies to carry them. Sound had become untethered, independent, capable of reaching farther and lasting longer than ever before. Yet these transformations carried tension. Sound once lived in the moment. Now it could be repeated endlessly. A speech could inspire again and again, but it could also be manipulated. Radio carried both comfort and propaganda. Music could be shared globally, but it could also be commodified, sold, and controlled. The capture of sound gave humanity power, but also responsibility. Imagine the wonder of hearing one's own voice for the first time on a phonograph, or the shock of hearing a stranger from across an ocean through a radio. Imagine the relief of a soldier receiving a phone call from home, or the awe of a child hearing music not from a village musician but from a spinning disc. Each of these moments reshaped what sound meant. No longer ephemeral, no longer tied to place, it became eternal, portable, democratic. By the mid-20th century, sound technology was everywhere. Records spun in homes, telephones rang in offices, Radios crackled in kitchens. Sound was no longer fleeting. It was preserved, multiplied, broadcast, transformed. Humanity had not only captured vibration but woven it into daily life. The fleeting had become permanent, the distant had become near, the unheard had become universal. The calm cosmos in these inventions reveals how sound is not only a natural force but a human creation. We shaped it, stored it, spread it. In doing so, we changed not just our tools but ourselves. The journey from drums to radio, from telegraph to phonograph, is not just a tale of devices. It is the story of humanity learning to extend its own voice beyond time and space. The story of sound in technology did not end with the radio or the phonograph. Each decade brought new inventions, each one reshaping how humans experienced vibration turned to meaning. If the early 20th century gave us permanence and reach, the late century gave us intimacy, portability, and personalization. Sound became not just a public force but a private companion, carried in pockets, pressed against ears, stitched into the fabric of daily life. Cassette tapes marked the first great leap into personal sound. Unlike records, heavy and fragile, cassettes were small, portable, and recordable. For the first time, ordinary people could capture their own voices, their own music, their own messages onto magnetic tape. Families recorded birthdays, weddings, lullabies sung to children. Teenagers made mixtapes stitching together songs that told stories of love, rebellion, or friendship. Each cassette was both universal and personal, mass-produced yet customizable. The world discovered that sound could be shared not just by companies and governments, but by anyone with a tape recorder. The cassette's influence stretched further through portability. Boomboxes filled city streets, carried on shoulders, blasting music into public space. The sound of neighborhoods became collective, marked by rhythms that spilled into alleys and parks. At the same time, the Walkman allowed music to become deeply personal. With a small player clipped to a belt and headphones pressed close, sound became a private world carried through crowds. One person could walk down a busy street surrounded by noise, yet live inside their own chosen soundtrack. The Walkman redefined sound as identity. Music was no longer what the community played, it was what the individual carried. CDs arrived with promises of clarity. Compact discs held sound as digital code, tiny pits etched into reflective surfaces that lasers could read. The hiss and crackle of tapes vanished. Music became cleaner, sharper, more precise. Songs could be skipped instantly. Albums could be replayed endlessly without wear. The permanence of sound reached new heights, and the industry embraced it. Record stores filled with shiny discs in plastic cases, each one a mirror holding vibrations of bands, choirs, orchestras. For a generation, the CD was the pinnacle of audio fidelity, the perfect balance of permanence and portability. But sound was not finished transforming. The MP3 arrived like a quiet revolution. Instead of grooves or tapes or discs, sound could now be compressed into digital files, stripped of bulk and weight, carried in computers, and shared across networks. Suddenly, music was not bound by physical media. Songs spread across the internet, copied and shared at the speed of light. Record companies panicked, artists worried, but listeners rejoiced. Music was free, abundant, infinite. The walls of scarcity collapsed. The iPod gave this revolution shape. A small white device no bigger than a hand could carry thousands of songs. Its slogan promised 1,000 songs in your pocket, but in truth it carried something greater. The idea that an individual's life could have a personal soundtrack, always available, always within reach. The sight of white earbuds became iconic, a cultural symbol of a generation that no longer waited for radio DJs or cassette tapes, but chose its own rhythm. Sound was no longer just public performance or communal experience. It was personal curation, identity written in playlists. Streaming followed, completing the transformation. No longer was music owned as tapes or discs or files. It became a service, a river flowing endlessly from the cloud. Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, all turned sound into something accessible anytime, anywhere with no limits. A song from across the world could be heard instantly. A forgotten album from decades past could be rediscovered with a tap. The scarcity of sound had become abundant, so vast it bordered on overwhelming. Humanity now lived not in a world of missing sound, but in one of endless choice. But this abundance changed listening itself. Radio once unified people, millions listening to the same voice at the same moment. Streaming fragmented sound, turning each person into their own programmer, their own DJ. Communities still formed around songs, but sound became more individual, more algorithmic. Playlists built by machines began to shape taste, predicting moods, guiding habits, constructing personal soundscapes tailored to each listener. Technology did not only deliver sound, it decided what sound would be heard. Podcasts added a new dimension. Unlike music, they brought back the intimacy of voice, one person speaking directly to another, often through headphones pressed close to the ear. For many, this was not entertainment, but companionship. Voices became part of routines, filling commutes, long nights, quiet chores. The tradition of radio storytelling returned, but personalized, on demand, and endless. Sound, once fleeting, became constant presence. Meanwhile, immersive sound expanded its horizons. Surround sound transformed cinemas, pulling audiences into explosions, whispers, storms that seemed to move around the body. Virtual reality experiments created soundscapes that shifted with the turn of a head, convincing the mind that invisible spaces were real. I began crafting sound environments. Synthetic forests invented cities, imagined worlds that no human microphone had ever captured. For sleep, meditation, focus, and therapy, people streamed hours of rain, waves, or digital sound baths crafted by algorithms. Technology was no longer just preserving sound, but creating new realities from it. Synthetic voices blurred the boundary further. Once, machines spoke in stilted tones, robotic and cold. Now, AI generates voices indistinguishable from humans, capturing emotion, rhythm and tone. Entire audiobooks are read by voices that do not exist. Language barriers fade as voices are cloned and translated. The human voice, once the most personal of sounds, has become replicable, modifiable, endlessly customizable. For some, this is thrilling. For others, it is uncanny, unsettling, a reminder that sound's intimacy can also be manipulated. The cultural implications are immense. Once hearing a voice meant presence, now it may mean simulation. Once owning music meant holding a record, now it means subscribing to a service. Once silence was filled by choice or chance, now it is rare, crowded out by the constant possibility of sound on demand. The world has become louder, but also more curated, each person living inside their own bubble of vibration. And yet, even amid this transformation, the essence remains. Sound is still vibration, energy moving through matter, waves pressing against the ear and into the mind. The tools have changed, the reach has expanded, the control has multiplied, but the core is the same. Air set in motion, carrying meaning. From drums to AI soundscapes, the journey is one of amplification, of extension, of bending time and distance, until sound is no longer fleeting, but infinite. The calm cosmos in these inventions reminds us that technology is not separate from nature, but a continuation of it. Just as whales fill oceans with song and elephants call across plains, we have filled our world with signals, broadcasts, recordings, and algorithms. We have extended sound beyond its limits, preserved it against silence, multiplied it beyond scarcity. What was once a momentary vibration has become eternal, abundant, and malleable. Sound, through technology, has become more than a sense. It has become memory, identity, companion, and creation. It is no longer tied to presence, but free to travel endlessly. And in that freedom lies both wonder and warning. For while we can now capture, share, and create sound beyond measure, we must remember that its power lies not in abundance, but in meaning. Without silence, without pause, even the richest soundscape becomes noise. Technology has given us infinite voices, but it's still up to us to listen. Sound begins with motion. A string is plucked, a drum is struck, a voice is spoken, and something begins to move back and forth. That movement presses against the air, squeezing molecules together, then releasing them. Compression, and rarefaction, push and pull. These become the pulse of sound, rippling outward from the source. Though invisible, it is as real as the ripples spreading across a pond after a stone is thrown. Air itself becomes the pond, each vibration a circle racing outward to meet ears, walls, and skies. A guitar string makes this clear. Strike it, and you see it tremble. But the music you hear is not the string itself. It is the air set into motion by its vibration. The string drags the air forward as it moves one way, then leaves behind a pocket of low pressure as it swings back. Molecules bump into each other, transferring energy outward, carrying the shape of the vibration through space. A human ear catches it, and the motion becomes sound. Remove the air, place the guitar in a vacuum, and the string still trembles, but no sound is born. Vibration alone is not enough. It must be shared, carried, passed along. Every sound you have ever heard, from a whisper to a thunderclap, is the same process repeated. The voice begins with vocal cords vibrating in the throat. The cords press against the air, producing tiny pulses of pressure. Those pulses travel, spreading in all directions until they reach another ear. A thunderstorm begins with a violent expansion of air heated by lightning, creating shock waves that roll for miles. The scale changes, the source changes, but the principle remains. All sound is motion carried forward. What makes one sound different from another is the nature of its vibration. Frequency defines pitch, how fast the cycles of compression and rarefaction occur. A slow vibration of 20 cycles per second becomes a deep rumble, barely audible. A rapid vibration of thousands of cycles per second becomes a piercing whistle. Between these lies the entire range of music, language, and noise that fills human life. Amplitude defines loudness, how strong the push and pull of each cycle is. A whisper has small amplitudes, gentle ripples in the air. A shout has large amplitudes, crashing waves that strike with force. But these concepts, though scientific, are lived every day in ordinary experience. A child cups their hands to shout louder, increasing amplitude by focusing the waves. A bird chirping high in a tree sings at a frequency far above the low rumble of distant thunder. In a canyon, an echo repeats your voice because the waves bounce from the walls and return, delayed but familiar. Even silence holds subtle vibrations. The hum of electricity, the faint resonance of buildings trembling in the wind. The physics of sound is not confined to laboratories. It is written into every corner of life. Mediums matter deeply. Sound in air moves at about 340 meters per second. In water, denser and more elastic, it moves more than 4 times faster. In steel, it moves faster still. The reason is simple. The closer the particles are packed, the quicker they can transfer motion. But there is balance. If matter is too rigid or too sparse, the transmission weakens. This is why sound cannot travel through the emptiness of space. Without particles to carry vibration, silence reigns. The voice of a star exploding cannot reach us directly. Only light and invisible waves cross the void. Vibrations also explain why sound can be felt as well as heard. Place your hand on a speaker and the rhythm thrums through your skin. Stand near a bass drum and the air shakes your chest. Low frequencies especially are felt this way, moving bodies as much as ears. Music in clubs relies on this truth, turning vibration into physical experience. The body becomes a second ear, listening through touch. Resonance begins where simple vibration meets harmony. Every object has a frequency at which it prefers to vibrate. Strike a tuning fork, and it hums at its natural pitch. Place another fork of the same pitch nearby, and it too will begin to vibrate even without being touched. Energy leaps invisibly between them, shared through the air. This is resonance, when external vibrations match the natural rhythm of an object, amplifying its motion until it sings, or in extreme cases, until it shatters. The world is full of resonance. Bridges sway when winds match their rhythm. Glasses break when singers find their note. Buildings hum during earthquakes, tuned to frequencies that either spare them or bring them down. Resonance explains not only fragility but beauty. A violin's wooden body resonates with the vibration of its strings, enriching sound. Human voices resonate in chest and throat, shaping tone and warmth. Without resonance, sound would be thin, hollow, lifeless. With it, sound gains power. The physics of sound may seem cold, reduced to cycles per second and pressure measured in pascals. But in truth, it is alive with wonder. To know that every word you speak is a wave rippling outward, touching walls and people and air itself. To realize that every laugh is energy shared, every song a dance of molecules. To imagine that even as you sit in stillness, vibrations continue, the hum of the earth, the murmur of machines, the quiet breath of the body. The universe is never silent. It is always trembling with motion. Sound, at its core, is the rhythm of existence. From atoms vibrating in crystals to thunder rolling in skies, the same laws hold. Vibration creates waves. Waves travel through matter. Matter shares its motion endlessly until energy is spent. What we hear is only a sliver of this vast ongoing process, a translation made possible by ears and brains. But the waves themselves are everywhere, infinite, eternal, shaping a cosmos that is always moving, always resonating. The calm cosmos in these truths shows that sound is not just a sense but a structure of reality. It is the language of vibration, the poetry of physics, the invisible ripple that ties all things together. To hear is to witness motion. To study sound is to glimpse the heartbeat of the universe itself. Resonance is where sound reveals its deepest secrets. Vibration alone is simple, a push and pull that ripples through matter. But when a vibration matches the natural rhythm of something else, energy flows like water finding its channel. The effect is amplification, motion growing greater and greater, as though the universe itself is conspiring to encourage it. Resonance is not only physics, it is harmony, amplification, and sometimes destruction. A child on a swing knows this truth instinctively. Push at the right moment, in time with the swing's rhythm, and the arc grows higher and higher with little effort. Push at the wrong moment, and the swing resists, falters, fights against the motion. Resonance is the secret of timing, of alignment, of matching rhythm with rhythm. This same principle governs sound everywhere. Take the tuning fork, strike it, and it vibrates at a precise frequency. Place another tuning fork of the same pitch nearby, and soon it will begin to vibrate as well, though untouched. Invisible waves leap from one to the other, setting it singing in sympathy. This sympathetic vibration is resonance in miniature, a perfect demonstration that energy can move between things simply by sharing rhythm. The world is full of such exchanges. Musical instruments are designed around resonance. A violin string alone makes little sound. It is the wooden body, carefully shaped and hollowed, that resonates with the string's vibration and amplifies it into music. A guitar's cavity, a piano's soundboard, a flute's tube, each is crafted to resonate with vibrating air, enriching tone and volume. Without resonance, instruments would whisper. With it, they sing. Musicians learn to feel resonance in their own bodies too. A singer's chest and throat vibrate with notes, shaping warmth and colour. Opera singers train to align their voices with the resonant frequencies of theatres, projecting without microphones. Every song is resonance brought to life, but resonance is not only beauty, it is also danger. The Tacoma Narrows Bridge, once the third longest suspension bridge in the world, collapsed in 1940 when steady winds matched its resonant frequency. What began as gentle swaying grew into violent twisting. The bridge buckled, snapped, and fell into the water below. Engineers realized too late that resonance had magnified the motion, until destruction was inevitable. The collapse became a symbol of nature's hidden power, a reminder that vibration could topple steel as easily as it could carry music. Earthquakes expose resonance on a massive scale. Buildings resonate with the shaking ground. If the frequency of the quake matches the building's natural rhythm, the structure can collapse. Cities on soft soil are particularly vulnerable, as the ground itself resonates with long, slow vibrations. Entire neighborhoods sway, rise, and fall together, amplifying destruction. Engineers now design skyscrapers with dampers, giant pendulums, that counteract resonance, absorbing motion so that waves cannot grow. Resonance is predictable, but only if one knows where it waits. Even in daily life, resonance appears. A car stereo's bass may rattle windows and mirrors, the glass vibrating in sympathy with low notes. A train crossing a bridge may cause the whole structure to hum. Soldiers marching in step once caused bridges to collapse, their synchronized rhythm amplifying vibrations until planks gave way. Now, troops are ordered to break step when crossing. Resonance hides in these ordinary details, waiting to emerge when rhythms align. Standing waves are resonance made visible. Pluck a guitar string, and you see not chaos but patterns, points that remain still while others vibrate intensely. These nodes and antinodes are the signature of standing waves, the natural modes of vibration in the string. Harmonics arise from them, higher frequencies layered atop the fundamental note, giving richness and timbre. The same occurs in flutes, organs, and trumpets, where air vibrates in columns, shaping harmonics that colour each instrument's voice. Without these layers, music would be flat, lifeless. With them, it becomes symphony. Resonance is not confined to Earth. In the cosmos, it appears on scales unimaginable. Jupiter's moons fall into orbital resonance, tugging each other into rhythms that keep them aligned. Saturn's rings sing with vibrations caused by hidden moons, ripples carved into bands of ice by gravitational harmonics. Stars themselves vibrate like colossal instruments, their surfaces trembling with pressure waves. Astronomers listen to these starquakes, translating light variations into sound to study their inner structures. Even the universe, vast and silent, carries resonance. Philosophically, resonance extends beyond physics. It becomes metaphor for human connection. We speak of resonating with an idea, with art, with another person. What we mean is alignment, that something outside us vibrates in harmony with something within. Music resonates with memory, stirring emotion long buried. Words resonate with truth, amplifying thoughts we did not know we carried. Even silence resonates, shaping sound by contrast. Resonance is both scientific and symbolic, the bridge between matter and meaning. But behind the poetry lies a stern truth. Resonance cannot be ignored. It amplifies, magnifies, transforms. It can enrich or destroy, create or collapse. Engineers study it to protect bridges. Musicians harness it to fill halls. Doctors explore it to shatter kidney stones with focused sound. Everywhere, resonance is present, waiting to be discovered, waiting to be used. The calm cosmos, in its endless tremors, reminds us that resonance is the hidden law of vibration. It is why glasses sing, why strings hum, why planets align. It is the principle that ties physics to art, structure to collapse, silence to song. To live is to resonate, sometimes in harmony, sometimes in discord, always in motion. Sound is not only physics or biology, it is culture. From the first cries of infants to the last songs sung at funerals, sound carries identity, history, and belonging. Long before writing, long before alphabets carved thoughts into stone, humans used sound to share knowledge. Words spoken around fires preserved memory across generations. Songs carried wisdom, myths, and laws long before books could hold them. In this way, sound became the first library, the first teacher, the first thread binding communities together. Language itself is the most human of sounds. Each syllable is a vibration shaped by breath, tongue, and lips. Yet beyond mechanics, language is the music of meaning. Different cultures carve different melodies into their speech. The tonal rises of Mandarin, the rolling cadences of Italian, the clipped rhythms of German, all reveal identity through sound. To listen to a language is to hear a worldview. The very shape of thought is carried in vibration. When languages die, as so many have, the silence is more than loss of words. It is the loss of a unique sound, a unique rhythm, a way of being that no text can fully restore. Storytelling has always relied on sound. Before paper, stories lived in voices, passed from elder to child, from singer to audience. Myths were not read but heard, sung in chants, recited in cadences that made them memorable. Oral traditions depended on rhythm and tone as much as on meaning. A story that could be sung or chanted survived. One that lacked sound faded. In many cultures, bards, griots, shamans, and poets were keepers of sound, their voices living vaults of memory. The authority of history was not in ink but in vibration. Music extends this power beyond words. Rhythm and melody bypass language entirely, striking directly at emotion. A drum beat can unify hundreds of feet into one dance. A lullaby can calm a child across cultures. A national anthem can move a crowd to tears even if the words are not understood. Music is both universal and particular. Every culture invents it, yet every culture shapes it differently. The instruments may vary, the scales may differ, but the impulse is the same: to turn vibration into identity, to transform sound into belonging. Consider ritual. Bells toll in churches calling the faithful. The muezzin's voice rises from a minaret, summoning prayer 5 times a day. Buddhist monks strike gongs that reverberate through temples, each strike a reminder of impermanence. In every tradition, sacredness is marked by sound. Silence too has its place, but sound is the gateway, the signal, the frame. Without it, ritual would lose its heartbeat. Everyday culture is also saturated with sound. Markets hum with bargaining voices. Festivals explode with drums and horns. Streets carry the honk of traffic, the cry of vendors, the laughter of children. Each city has a soundscape that marks it as unique. The echo of footsteps on stone in Rome, the rush of trains beneath New York, the call of rickshaw drivers in Delhi, the seagulls circling harbours in Istanbul. These sounds are not just background, they are memory. Travellers remember cities not only by sight but by their voices. To close one's eyes and listen is to step into identity. Even silence within culture is shaped by sound. Pauses in conversation carry weight, meaning as much as words. A pause before a confession, a silence after bad news, a moment of quiet in prayer. Each one is structured by expectation of sound before and after. Sound gives silence context, and silence gives sound meaning. The interplay defines cultural rhythm. Sound has also been a tool of power. Leaders have always known that a voice can command more strongly than a text. Speeches broadcast through radio stirred nations. Chants in protest filled streets with force greater than numbers alone. Songs became anthems of movements. Freedom songs in civil rights marches, revolutionary hymns in uprisings, folk songs carrying hidden resistance under occupation. To silence a people is to strip them of sound. To reclaim it is to reclaim identity. But sound also carries intimacy. Lovers whisper. Families call nicknames that outsiders do not understand. Communities form dialects, accents, slang, variations of sound that mark who belongs and who does not. To mimic a sound is to borrow identity. To lose an accent is to lose a piece of self. Sound carries more than information. It carries belonging. The calm cosmos in these cultural voices reminds us that sound is not just energy but heritage. It is the vibration of memory, the resonance of community, the rhythm of identity. To listen is not only to perceive but to belong. To speak, to sing, to chant is to weave oneself into the fabric of history. Without sound, culture would be mute. With it, culture sings. Every culture has its own way of shaping sound into meaning, and nowhere is this clearer than in music. In Africa, drums are not simply instruments. They are voices, carrying rhythms that speak messages across distances. Entire villages once communicated through drum patterns, each beat carrying information that could be understood miles away. But the drum is more than communication. It is identity. The polyrhythms of West Africa, intricate and layered, reflect the interwoven structure of community itself. Every hand plays a different pattern, but together they form one whole. To hear those rhythms is to hear society made audible. In India, sound takes form in the raga, a framework that is both melody and mood. A raga is not only notes but time, season, and emotion. Morning ragas rise like sunlight, evening ragas descend like twilight. Listeners do not simply hear, they enter a state shaped by centuries of tradition, each note resonating with cultural memory. The sitar's strings, bending notes in microtones, reveal a world of vibration between the notes Western ears expect. It is a reminder that culture defines not only what music is made, but how sound itself is perceived. In the Middle East, maqams shape music with scales that bend between pitches, weaving melodies that spiral like calligraphy in air. The oud's deep tones and the ni's breathy voice create soundscapes that are both ancient and immediate, filled with longing, prayer, and joy. Each maqam carries associations: love, loss, devotion. known instinctively to those raised in the tradition. To listen is to belong, to recognize the emotional codes carried in sound. Western classical music builds cathedrals of harmony. Symphonies unfold like architecture, movements rising and falling, each section resonating with the others. Here, sound is structure, mathematics transformed into emotion. A Beethoven symphony is not only notes but philosophy, wrestled into vibration. A Bach fugue is not only melody but geometry, order expressed in time. These traditions show that sound is not separate from culture, but the very shape of how culture imagines meaning. Migration carries these soundscapes across the world. When people move, they bring their music, their voices, their rhythms. Jazz was born from African rhythms meeting European instruments in America. Flamenco rose from the blending of Arabic, Roma, and Spanish traditions. Salsa emerged in New York, carrying the pulse of Cuba, Puerto Rico, and the Bronx together. Hip-hop grew from the streets of the Bronx, where turntables turned recorded sound into new instruments, voices into protest, rhythm into identity. Migration makes sound travel, and in its travel, culture reshapes itself. For migrants, sound is memory. The call of a familiar song, the accent of a homeland, the rhythm of prayer, all become anchors of belonging in foreign lands. Immigrant communities preserve their soundscapes through festivals, radio stations, and recordings, keeping alive the voices of their past. Even generations later, children raised far from ancestral homes know the songs of their grandparents. Sound transcends borders more powerfully than text. It vibrates with emotion that cannot be translated but only felt. Modern life has created its own soundscapes. Cities hum with electricity, traffic, sirens, and chatter. Each metropolis has its signature voice. The roar of subways in New York, the call of cicadas blending with scooters in Bangkok, the layered prayers, bells, and horns of Istanbul. These sounds become part of identity just as much as language or food. Travelers remember them, residents are shaped by them, and artists try to capture them. The modern soundscape is both rich and overwhelming, a constant flood that defines daily existence. Technology has layered new sounds on top of old. The buzz of cell phones, the chime of notifications, the synthetic voices of assistants, all shape how people live. These sounds are designed, engineered to trigger response. A ringtone identifies a person before a voice is heard. A startup chime signals reliability before a program begins. Even silence in technology is significant. The absence of expected sound may mean failure, danger, or loss. Culture is no longer only about traditional instruments or voices, but about digital tones crafted to shape behavior. And yet, beneath these new layers, old sounds persist. A lullaby sung to a child is not so different from one sung centuries ago. A drumbeat in a protest march echoes rhythms that once called villages to gather. A bell tolling in a church, a call to prayer from a mosque, a chant in a temple, all continue traditions older than nations. Sound is heritage that refuses to vanish, carrying forward identity even as the world transforms. Recordings have preserved this heritage in ways unimaginable to earlier generations. Voices once lost to time now live in archives. We can hear singers from a century ago, storytellers whose languages are no longer spoken, speeches from leaders long gone. Technology has turned sound into time travel. We can step into past moments not by reading about them but by hearing them, vibrations captured and replayed. The dead speak again. The past resonates in the present. Culture extends itself beyond mortality. But preservation is not only memory, it is also responsibility. The ability to record means the ability to shape history. Which sounds are saved, which are lost, determines what future generations know of us. Folk songs vanish if they are never recorded. Dialects fade if no one captures their voices. To preserve sound is to preserve identity. To let it fade is to allow silence to erase culture. Philosophically, sound and culture reveal that identity is not static but resonant. It vibrates, it travels, it changes, but it always carries something of its origin. Just as resonance amplifies a vibration, culture amplifies the voices of those before us. When we sing, we do not sing alone. We sing with the echoes of ancestors. When we speak with the inflections of centuries. Culture is not just history remembered, it is history vibrating in the present, alive in sound. The calm cosmos, in these voices, teaches that culture is not written only in stone or text, but in vibration. It is the rhythm of speech, the cadence of prayer, the pulse of drums, the echo of cities. Sound carries belonging, memory, and identity across time and space. To lose it is to lose part of ourselves. To preserve it is to preserve not only music and language, but the essence of humanity itself. The story of sound has always been one of transformation. From drums in villages to radio waves across continents, from phonographs etched in wax to digital playlists stored in clouds, each step has extended the reach of vibration. But the journey is not over. Sound is entering futures stranger than anything humanity has yet known. Realities where voices are created by machines, where music is generated by algorithms, where silence is filled with data sonified into meaning. The future of sound is not only louder or clearer, it is deeper, more immersive, more entwined with imagination and cosmos alike. Virtual reality has already begun to show what sound can become. Step into a headset, and the world changes not only through sight, but through audio that shifts with the turn of the head. Footsteps echo behind you. Wind whistles past your left ear. A voice seems to whisper directly at your shoulder. Unlike stereo or surround systems of the past, spatial audio in virtual worlds recreates reality itself, tricking the brain into believing it inhabits another place. Sound is no longer just accompaniment, it is environment. Without it, virtual worlds collapse into hollowness. With it, they breathe. Augmented reality adds another layer. In everyday life, glasses or earbuds may soon overlay voices, directions, or music precisely where they belong. Imagine walking through a city guided not by maps but by sounds that emerge from the streets themselves. A voice pointing from a corner, a melody rising from a landmark, a whisper of information drifting from a building. Sound becomes spatial annotation, stitching digital knowledge into physical space. The world speaks back, not through screens but through the air around us. Artificial intelligence has also transformed creation itself. Once, music required instruments, training, time. Now, algorithms generate symphonies in minutes, crafting harmonies that never existed before. AI voices read audiobooks, sing songs, narrate documentaries, even mimic celebrities long gone. For some, this is thrilling. The democratization of sound, creativity accessible to anyone with an idea. For others, it is unsettling. If any voice can be simulated, what does authenticity mean? If any song can be generated, what becomes of human artistry? The future of sound lies at this intersection, where machine creativity collides with human identity. Neurotechnology may push even further. Brain-computer interfaces experiment with translating thought into sound, bypassing speech entirely. Imagine sharing an idea not by speaking, but by broadcasting its rhythm directly, a melody of thought vibrating in another's mind. Or imagine therapy where brainwaves are tuned with sound to heal depression, anxiety, or trauma. Already, scientists explore how specific frequencies affect mood, memory, and focus. In the future, sound may not simply enter our ears, it may be written directly into our neurons. But the future of sound is not confined to Earth. In space, silence rules, yet even here sound finds new forms. Instruments aboard spacecraft translate cosmic data into audio. The magnetic fields of Jupiter become eerie whistles. The plasma waves of the solar wind become haunting roars. Black holes colliding create gravitational waves that, when sonified, chirp like cosmic bells. These are not sounds in the traditional sense. They are translations, vibrations of the universe made audible to human senses. But in them, we hear the cosmos singing. The future may bring entire libraries of these cosmic songs, each one a reminder that silence is only what our ears perceive, not what the universe is. Sound may also shape the future of exploration. Astronauts traveling to Mars will live in environments defined by machine hums, air pumps, and recycled atmospheres. Designers are already studying how to create soundscapes that preserve mental health on long journeys. Soft tones, familiar voices, artificial nature sounds to ward off the oppressive silence of space. Future colonies may engineer their own acoustic ecologies, deciding what a Martian morning should sound like, what music will fill domes beneath alien skies. Philosophically, the future of sound challenges our sense of authenticity. When every voice can be cloned, every song can be generated, every silence can be filled, what remains uniquely human? Perhaps it will not be the ability to create sound, but the ability to listen, to choose what matters from infinite abundance. Just as resonance depends on harmony, the future of sound may depend not on endless noise, but on the careful shaping of silence and vibration together. The calm cosmos, in its unfolding futures, reminds us that sound has never been static. It is always becoming, always extending, always surprising. From caves to radios, from vinyl to algorithms, it has followed humanity into every age, transforming with each step. Now it carries us into virtual worlds, into machine creativity, into cosmic echoes. The future of sound is vast, uncertain, thrilling. What remains constant is its essence. Vibration moving through matter, carrying meaning, shaping identity. To imagine the future of sound is to imagine the future of ourselves. The future of sound is not only invention but also reflection. It forces us to ask what it means for voices to be real, for music to be authentic, for silence to be respected. Technology has made it possible to capture, replay, and even generate sound. But in doing so, it has unsettled the very foundations of presence and truth. Artificial intelligence has given rise to voices that are no longer tied to bodies. A singer who died decades ago can now release a new song, her voice reconstructed by algorithms that study old recordings and rebuild every tone, every breath. Public figures can be made to speak words they never said, their voices cloned with unsettling accuracy. Audiobooks can be read by synthetic narrators who never tire, never falter, never stumble. For some, this is liberation, sound freed from human limitation. For others, it is deception, a theft of authenticity. If any voice can be generated, what does it mean to hear someone speak? The ethics of sound in this new era are complex. Who owns a voice? Does it belong to the speaker, to their family, to the company that cloned it, to the public that hears it? What happens when voices are used against their will, or when they survive long after the speaker has gone? Sound has always been intimate, woven into identity. Now it can be detached, multiplied, and repurposed. The intimacy remains, but the authenticity may vanish. Music faces similar questions. AI can generate symphonies that rival Beethoven, pop songs indistinguishable from chart toppers, ambient soundscapes that shift endlessly in response to mood. The abundance is staggering. But if every moment can be filled with music created on demand, does music lose its weight? Part of art's power has always been scarcity. The knowledge that it came from a specific hand, a specific heart, a specific time. In the future, the challenge may not be access to music, but choosing what is meaningful amid infinite supply. Immersive futures add another dimension. In the metaverse, entire worlds may be built not only from light, but from sound. Imagine walking through a forest that never existed, every leaf rustling in response to your steps, every bird singing a song invented by an algorithm. Imagine sitting in a concert hall that reshapes itself as you move, music bending to your emotions, harmonies shifting with your thoughts. These soundscapes may be beautiful, but they may also be overwhelming. The line between reality and invention will blur, and sound will no longer simply describe the world, it will create it. Psychologically, living in engineered soundscapes may change humanity itself. Already, people fill silence with earbuds, carrying personal soundtracks everywhere. In the future, silence may disappear entirely, replaced by customizable audio environments. Each person could live inside their own chosen world of vibration, insulated from others. The danger is isolation. If everyone hears only what they choose, the shared soundscapes of culture, the street, the festival, the anthem, may fade. Sound once united communities. Personalized abundance may divide them, yet silence itself may become the rarest resource. In a world where sound can be generated endlessly, the absence of it may become sacred. Just as pauses give music shape, silence may be the most precious soundscape of the future. To sit in quiet, without voices, without algorithms, without hums, may be a luxury, a form of resistance against constant noise. Humanity may rediscover that silence is not emptiness but depth. a reminder that meaning requires contrast. Beyond Earth, sound's future stretches into the cosmos. We have already begun to translate cosmic vibrations into audible tones. The rising chirp of gravitational waves from colliding black holes, the eerie whistles of Jupiter's magnetosphere, the slow oscillations of stars. These are not sounds in the human sense, but they are resonances of reality, shifted into our narrow band of hearing. As instruments improve, the cosmos will sing more richly. Astronomers may one day listen to galaxies colliding, to the background hum of creation itself. Some scientists speculate that the universe has its own cosmic sound, pressure waves left over, from the Big Bang rippling still across space-time. If one day these can be sonified, humanity may hear the echo of its own origin, the first vibration that set all else in motion. In that sound, science and philosophy would meet. The universe not only seen but heard, not only measured but felt. The destiny of sound may be to return us to listening. For all our inventions, for all our abundance, the essence remains vibration moving through matter. What matters is not how much we generate, but how deeply we attend. Whether it's a voice preserved across centuries, a synthetic song created by machines, a silence chosen in defiance of noise, or a cosmic echo billions of years old, the future of sound will ask us to listen more carefully than ever before. The calm cosmos, in its whispers and in its silences, teaches that sound is not only a tool but a mirror. It reflects our technology, our culture, our ethics, our longing. It binds us to Earth, to each other, and to the stars. Its future is vast, uncertain, and thrilling, but its essence is eternal: vibration, resonance, meaning. To follow the future of sound is to follow the future of humanity itself, forever listening for echoes in the great silence of the universe. Sound has always been with us. It begins before we are born, when the womb is filled with the steady rhythm of a mother's heartbeat and the muffled vibrations of her voice. It remains with us until the end, when the final breath leaves the body in a whisper that marks silence taking its place. Between those two moments stretches a life defined by vibration. Every cry, every song, every conversation, every echo a testament that we exist in motion. The story of sound is the story of everything. Atoms vibrate, stars quake, planets hum. The Earth itself groans with deep infrasound, rolling beneath our feet. Oceans roar in low notes, winds carve the air into whistles, and birds lace mornings with melody. Our bodies are instruments, lungs blowing air, vocal cords trembling, bones resonating with the frequencies of life. Every heartbeat is a drum, every breath a sigh, every step a note in the great orchestra of existence. We have explored sound's physics, tracing how vibrations ripple through matter, how frequencies define pitch, how amplitude defines volume. We have seen resonance amplify the smallest motion into music, or destruction. A singer can shatter glass with the right note. Winds can topple bridges by matching their natural rhythm. Planets align in cosmic resonance, moons tugging each other into dance. Sound reveals that the universe itself is structured like music, full of harmonies and dissonances waiting to be heard. We have listened to sound as culture. Language carried knowledge before writing. Songs carried identity before nations. Drums spoke across distances. Chants bound rituals together. Anthems stirred hearts into unity. Music, in all its forms, from ragas to blues, from makams to symphonies, has revealed the diversity of humanity and the unity of emotion. Sound has always been more than entertainment. It has been memory, belonging, resistance, and hope. We have seen sound heal. The lullaby calms a child. Chants steady the mind. Music therapy restores memory to those who have lost it. Ultrasound images unborn children, breaks apart stones and guides surgeons without knives. Vibrations bathe the body in energy that mends and restores. Sound is medicine as old as time and as modern as tomorrow's machines. And we have seen sound destroy. Shockwaves tear buildings apart. Explosions kill not only with fire but with pressure. Infrasound unsettles the body. Sonic booms crack the sky. The same resonance that fills a violin with warmth can bring a bridge to collapse. Sound is not gentle by nature. It is powerful, capable of creation and ruin. It reflects us, carrying both our tenderness and our violence. Technology has transformed sound into permanence. The phonograph preserved voices, the radio spread them, the telephone connected them, cassette tapes, CDs, MP3s, streaming services, each step made sound more portable, more abundant, more intimate. Now AI generates voices that never lived, music that never passed through human hands, soundscapes that belong not to nature but to imagination. Sound is no longer only captured, it is invented, multiplied, cloned. Its abundance raises questions as profound as its scarcity once did. And still, silence remains. For all the noise we create, silence is the background against which it matters. Pauses make music beautiful. Quiet moments give speech its weight. In space, silence is absolute, a reminder that sound is tied to matter, that the universe does not need to speak in ways our ears can hear. Yet even there, vibrations exist, in gravitational waves, in plasma winds, in the trembling of stars. Translate them, and the cosmos sings. The silence of space is only silence to us. To the universe, it is filled with sound we cannot yet perceive. The future of sound stretches farther still. Virtual worlds shaped by spatial audio, augmented realities where streets whisper directions, AI voices speaking in infinite tongues, cosmic data translated into haunting symphonies. This is the frontier ahead. The challenge will not be whether sound can be created, but whether it can be meaningful. Amid endless abundance, silence may become the rarest song, and so the story circles back. Sound is not merely a physical phenomenon. It is not merely culture or technology. It is connection. A voice carries across a room and reaches another heart. A song carries across generations and keeps memory alive. A vibration travels from the earth to the stars and tells us we belong to a universe in motion. To listen is to belong. To speak is to extend oneself into the world. To sing is to resonate with something greater than self. From the hum of atoms to the roar of galaxies, from lullabies to AI symphonies, from silence to thunder. All of it is vibration carried through matter. All of it is sound. The calm cosmos, in its infinite orchestra, reminds us that existence itself is a symphony, an eternal interplay of silence and vibration, of resonance and pause. We are part of that music. Our voices, fragile and brief, are threads in the vast fabric. Our songs join the echoes of whales in oceans, birds in skies, planets in orbit, stars in quakes. Together, they form the eternal symphony of life and cosmos. And when we fall silent, the symphony continues. The universe vibrates still, carrying forward the music of existence.